We are now looking at the XXE vulnerability, or the XML external entities vulnerability, and this is the one that deals with the evaluation of external entities in our XML input. And when we're talking about XML input that's vulnerable, here's the kind that we're talking about. You see we have a definition for an entity called XXE, and it's talking about using a system source file, and that file here happens to be /etc/password, which is the one that contains some sensitive information, and that is now going to be used by this over here, this entity and XXE. And so the question is, how is this dangerous? So the danger comes from the fact that we are evaluating this without really being able to somehow stop some malicious activity from going on, because we are letting our input provider decide what file will get loaded. And because of this format where we can reference a local file, and that file could be something sensitive, we are opening the door for an attack. And so here we have some code that's going to make that attack possible. We are disabling the entity loader false, meaning that the entity loader is now enabled, which it's not by default, in libxml, which is the XML parsing and XML utilities library for PHP. And then we're taking the content and we're turning it into an XML string. We're creating this DOM document, and then out of the DOM document we are loading, or into the DOM document, so we're loading XML from the XML string. We're saying that use these as the settings, so substitute the entities and load external DTDs. If you know XML, you know what this is talking about. If not, then it's really these definitions for the document, which are coming from outside of the normal schema. And here's the output. It's getting imported from the DOM, which is our host for the XML structure that gets loaded out of the string, and then we print the output. So what we're going to be seeing is essentially a representation of this, but with this being replaced by the contents of the file. Let's take a look. We go in here, we're going to paste in this file as our input XML, and there you go. So pretty scary. It lets us look at all this stuff. So why is that important? Well, again, we're really getting an opportunity to look at arbitrary files on a host system, and that can have all kinds of repercussions, and we don't really want that to be enabled. So how do we stop this? Well, for one thing, we can go back to this being true. We can remove these. There we go. And now let's see how that works. So there we go. It's now empty. Simple enough remediation. The defaults are secure now. They didn't always used to be, but in case you find yourself in a situation where you do need to load external XML entities, now you know what the problem might be, and you know why you're best off avoiding it. And if you do have to look through and enable these kind of things in the future, before you actually do this step, you might want to take a scan through the XML string and see whether they're trying to include something like this in the input. And you can use string compare, you can use find, you can use a lot of different tools depending on your technology of choice, but essentially see if there's any sensitive files that, or patterns that match sensitive files that are getting imported in, especially when it's a local file reference like this. And that is XXE and the remediation.